So we're getting ready to pull up on a group of about 50 that we're having to process right now. I probably have 6 agents that are responsible for doing some basic intake sheets. We have transportations. We have a bus that will hold 50 people that will tie us up for probably at least an hour.
Right.
We are having, everybody said, no, we don't have any problem. There is a lot of problems out there.
Yeah.
I mean, if
People are
you're out there
crossing.
24/7, you can see a lot of that stuff.
We're here in Brownsville, and downtown Brownsville is right here over the fence that we've got here with Border Patrol. I wanted you to notice a couple of things. First of all, having a giant fence here doesn't necessarily mean that the United States has cut itself off from access to the Rio Grande. Okay, that's not exactly what's happening. The other statistic that we have to point out is in this area, in Brownsville, where Brownsville is responsible for about 6% of illegal crossings, and this is why. Okay, the McAllen area, which doesn't have all of this infrastructure that you see, doesn't have the fencing, doesn't have the barbed wire, also doesn't have a lot of the technology that they have here in Brownsville. It's responsible for 94% of illegal crossings. So it doesn't take a whole lot of analysis here to figure out why this is working. And also, I want you to notice that on the Mexican side, they've got fencing as well, because border security is important to both the United States and Mexico. We all benefit from this. Again, it's just common sense. So we are here on our ride along tonight near McAllen, and here with the Deputy Chief of the sector here. Chief, on any given day, how many apprehensions are you seeing?
So for the fiscal year, we're averaging about 640, but over the last 3 days, that number has risen quite a bit. We've had several days where we apprehended about 850 folks, and then yesterday we apprehended over 1,000. So almost 2,700 in the last 3 days.
Right. What are you seeing in Brownsville where you've got a lot more infrastructure, you've got cameras in place, but you've got pretty secure fencing and walls as well?
Yeah, so we see a small percentage of the illegal alien traffic in our eastern corridor, which is the Cameron County area.
Yeah.
We've got 3 stations over there. They account for about 6% of our traffic. On our west side, I've got 3 stations in Starr County and Hidalgo County, and they account for about 94% of our traffic.
So 1,000 people came back the day before yesterday. 1,000 people were apprehended. How many could you actually see with sensors, with cameras that were just not apprehended?
So on that particular day, we had 170 people get away from us that we know of, that we either didn't have enough agents to respond or technology was able to spot them, but we were tied up dealing with some of the unaccompanied children and family units that we are also encountering. And so it becomes a resource issue.
Right.
We don't have enough agents. We certainly don't have enough infrastructure. We certainly don't have enough technology out here.
Right. I was always been under the impression, because Democrats keep saying it, that all you need are drones and sensors, and it's the magical solution. It just solves itself.
Yes.
But I guess that's not true.
No, sir. Just had a group of 4 or 5 illegal aliens that were actually trying to get away from our officers about a couple of 100 yards just to the east of here. And so on top of dealing with the humanitarian crisis or the folks that we're encountering that are unaccompanied children or family units, we're also dealing with out of that 1,000, 250 that are trying to get away from us.
Right. And another thing you told me that you see a lot is that whoever's in charge of this group, because it's not like this group just randomly got together, right? Like there's somebody who organizes this, and they're usually associated with drug traffickers. And what they'll do is use this group as to distract all you guys. Obviously, this takes a lot of resources. We're all here right now, which means there's a lot of unknown territory and places we can't see. They're not trying to even escape from Border Patrol, because they know that once Border Patrol apprehends them, they're going to be let go into the United States. And that's just the way our system works right now.
what does that say about the asylum process if this is the way that they're having to do it? Just the ports of entry or...
Well, what it says is that people have wisened up to the idea that all they have to do to cross into the country illegally is to claim asylum. Now, only 15, once these asylum cases are actually adjudicated, only 15% are actually shown to be valid. That means that the vast majority of these people have no asylum claim that's valid whatsoever. They're not being politically prosecuted. All right, they're economic migrants. I'm sure they're good people, but we have a system in place, and what's actually happening is they're cutting in front of the many, many other good people who are coming into the country legally. My family who did that. Okay, like my own stepmother is a legal immigrant. Lots of our family friends are legal immigrants. I don't agree with cutting in front of them.
So should something be...
So we're at the Centralized Processing Center. This is where you're bringing almost 1,000 immigrants a day to come get processed. Okay, so what happens here? The big issue that we see is which is the big draw for immigrants to come over with kids, which is why there's a humanitarian crisis here, because we have more kids coming across than ever before. It's the way our laws incentivize it. So all of these immigrants know that if they bring a child with them, that they get treated differently, that they can, whether they claim asylum or not, there's an almost guarantee that they will just be released in the U.S. population.
It becomes a draw. Now all of a sudden, every adult has a child with them. We're seeing men travel with 1- and 2-year-old children, which normally would never have been the case early on. And so the child becomes the anchor of, necessitating these folks to cross the river.
Right. They need a kid with them, otherwise they will get deported. Just today and yesterday, they found 16 kids who supposed parents had them. Then they discovered that they weren't actually their parents. All right. And as Border Patrol did more digging on this, there's a big truck in the background. As Border Patrol did more digging, what they found was they got intelligence on a stash house in Houston where they found over 50 more illegal immigrants. Some of them had already been processed. They had ankle bracelets. Now, why were they all in this one house? Well, they were there because the human smugglers in charge of them said they hadn't been paid yet, and they were not letting these people leave. This is indentured servitude, to say it nicely, but it's really what it is it's human trafficking and sometimes full-blown slavery. And they're trafficking children as well. We just saw that today. This isn't good for the kids coming across. We have to remove these incentives so that we can reduce this humanitarian crisis. Hey, Chief, so we're driving around here, and we're looking at places where Border Patrol has proposed adding this bollard fencing in, which means, the steel slats. And, the reality that you guys see is the fencing does stop people. It's quite the hurdle to get over that or under that. And so they'll try to go around it. But, and you can't put fencing everywhere, but that's kind of the point, right? Is that you want them to be funneled so that you can at least divert your resources in an efficient way. I mean, is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, so it's all about border management. I've always described it as, I want the Border Patrol and the local law enforcement to have a capacity that's here, and the bad guys to have a capacity here. When the situation is as such, I like our chances. Right now, their capacity is here and our capacity is here. So we've got to resource the border with the fencing, the technology, and the additional agents, so that way we can always have that upper hand. And we can force the traffic in these remote areas where we have time to respond. We have time to interdict them. And they're not running right through these neighborhoods and these communities.
Yeah. So I'm with Joe, and you got a ranch right here near McAllen, and it's right on the Rio Grande. So
Yes,
you're
sir,
right
that
on
is
the
correct.
border. And we're discussing, okay, where can we actually put barriers? Where do we need them? And a big issue we hear about in Texas is, listen, we have private landowners like yourself who still need access to the river, but does if we put the walls that we're talking about, the kind of walls we see in Brownsville, on your land, I mean, what do you think of that?
Well, the thing is, I feel that the wall should be right in the middle of the water,
Yeah.
which is impossible to do because that is 50-50. We do share our water. For example, we got a water treaty.
Yeah.
50% of the water comes in as Mexico and 50% belongs to us. That's where the wall belongs.
Yeah.
But
that's
since
hard.
that cannot happen,
Yeah.
it's got to be in the closest area. And to be able to help the levees and stuff, that would be the proper thing to do.
Right.
But I will
But
tell
that
you,
would be on your land, though.
Exactly.
But you can still
A lot-
access the river as long as
you
there's
have
a
to,
gate there.
definitely.
Yeah.
But the thing is that a lot of these farmers do want it, need it, but cannot say it because of the political parties
Right.
going on.
And
But other than
you'd
that,
be happy to allow